Hello. I'm hoping that people can hear me. Hello. Is there anybody there? I have no idea if this is working just yet. Brilliant. Can you hear me okay, Sharon? Can you hear me, Sharon, if I'm speaking? So just want to make sure that the sound is actually working. Hello. Hi, Sarah. Can anyone hear me? Fabulous. Brilliant. Okay, so welcome along to my first ever Facebook Live. Very exciting. Hope it will work all right. So very much welcome along. So I'll just give it a few moments to welcome people. So hello, Sharon. Sharon is a very super duper talented writer, very, very good friend of mine. So thank you for coming. Hello, Sarah, fellow Boldwood author. I'm really looking forward to delving into some of Sarah's books because they look absolutely gorgeous. Hi Ian, thank you very much. You're so supportive, Ian. What an absolute star you are. So Ian is another author, and he is brilliant at promoting everybody left, right and centre, sharing things on Twitter, Facebook. So really appreciate that, Ian. So thank you very much. And hi Nia. Nia is my editor at the amazing Boldwood Books. So thank you very much for coming along. Oh, I thought that was it, and then I've just scrolled and there's a pile more people there. So hi Katie, thank you for coming along. So Katie is an aspiring writer, just finished her first book, and she is in my writing chapter of the RNA at Beverley. Trisha, welcome along. Lovely to see you. Trisha was at 5:30 this morning with her dogs and actually started on my latest book then, so that was absolutely lovely. Liz, been good friends with Liz since we were 14, so a lot of years. I don't want to do the maths there. So lovely. Thank you for coming along, Liz. So a little bit about the format of today. Hi Pat. Pat again, also another author, so thank you for joining us today. So the format will be that I'm just going to welcome people, and should probably officially introduce myself, although I'm guessing you will have guessed who I am. So I am Jessica Redland, the author known as Jessica Redland, write uplifting fiction or uplifting stories of love and friendship set on the Yorkshire coast, but now have moved away from the coast just for my latest book. So I'm going to do a few introductions, and then I have some questions that people have very kindly sent in prior to us being here today, and I will go through about half of those, and then I'll do a little reading from my book Finding Love at Hedgehog Hollow, as it is publication day today. And if anybody has any other questions that they want to ask, do feel free to type them in, either on the back of something that I'm saying or something that you thought of that you would like to ask. And hello Anne Williams, and Anne, absolute star, kicked off the blog tour this morning for Finding Love at Hedgehog Hollow with an absolute beautiful review. Thank you so much, Anne. Anne is a really supportive, amazing book blogger, and we love her in the author community. Janice, my cousin, hello, welcome along. Thank you very much, Janice. And Nick, a good friend of mine. Actually, I think Nick, did we meet when you spotted my husband post something on I Love Scarborough or something like that, and you got one of my books on the back of that? I can't remember how we connected. It was online somehow, but thank you for coming along and joining us today. So, launch day, publication date for Finding Love at Hedgehog Hollow, and I've got to show you Mickleby, my hedgehog. He wants to say hello to everybody. Giant hedgehog. My daughter, funnily enough, has two of these. So I stole one of them, and he's now Mickleby, the mascot for my book, Loiters of Intent in My Office. Oh, Hi, Linda. Again, Linda, a reader of my books, joining us from the USA. So thank you very much for joining us today, Linda. So I will start and just look through some of the questions that I've been asked. As I said, feel free to ask any other questions, comment on anything. That's very good. So first question, really great one to start with. We've had lots of great questions. When you travel to locations for your books, when you travel to locations that your books are based on, do you mentally jump right back into the story? Fab question, as I say. So the books that I write are predominantly based on my hometown of Scarborough, in North Yorkshire in the UK, and so I'm regularly, or was pre-COVID, regularly in the vicinity that is the inspiration for my books. So I wouldn't say I'm immediately transported back to being kind of in the book as such, but there are certain places that I use in my books that when I'm there I think, this is where such and such would be set. Particular example, if anybody's read The Secret to Happiness, quite a bit of it is set in a boot camp, which is in Scarborough's North Bay, or Whitbread Bay, where I write about, in the North Bay there. And the colourful beach that appear on the front cover of that are actually in North Bay in Scarborough. So when I do go along there, I tend to think boot camp, but that's also partly because I used to do a boot camp based there. And one of the characters, Daniela, in that book, she actually lives in some flats that just overlook those. So I kind of tend to think about that location when I'm there, but not so much transported there because the books are my hometown. Do you read many of your fellow authors' books also? Yes, I do. I try to. I really struggled for reading time until very recently. Until last month, always had a full-time job that I've done alongside writing. So writing has been something I've very much squeezed in on an evening, on a weekend, where I can fit it in, if I can fit it in at all. But I resigned from my day job. Always had been the dream of mine to be able to write full time, and I've been able to do that as of last month. So a week into June I became a full-time writer, and actually I have read more in those few weeks than I have done in the whole of the year before. So it's great having evenings where I can just have my tea, have some family time and read, rather than thinking, right, I've got to get in my office because I've got a day job to do or a bit of writing to do. I try to read as many Boldwood authors as I can do, because there are some absolutely incredible authors, some brilliant books. I've managed to read about 9 so far of Boldwood books, but I've got about triple that waiting on my Kindle to get through. I'm also part of a writing group called The Right Romantics, and there's 10 of us, and all of those have brought out anywhere from 2 to about 20 books, and I try to read as many of those as I can as well. And Sharon, who's joined us today, Sharon Booth, is one of those, and I read everything that she's written. And then also any other authors. There's quite a lot of authors that I've come across on Facebook, and people who, before I even thought about writing, that I was a huge fan of, like Jill Mansell, Marion Keyes. I try to read all of their books as well. But I have, like so many avid readers, I have hundreds and hundreds of books on my Kindle, hundreds on the bookshelf behind me. You can see I've got a couple of bookshelves behind me packed full of books, and it takes a long time to get through them all. A couple more welcomes. Welcome along. Oh no, just one more to Susan Hockley. Susan is my best friend from school days when we used to be in Brownie's Guides Sunday school together, so a long time ago. So welcome along. Thank you for joining us today, Susan. So another question, if you could, which writer, living or dead, would you like to meet, and what would you like to talk to them about? Again, another great question. Well, right now, I would love to be able to talk to, in person, my bestie writing pal, Sharon, because we normally meet up every fortnight, and we can just, while 5 or 6 hours away, just like that, talking about our works in progress, all things writing, and really missing that since lockdown. But if we're talking kind of author maybe from the past, I would have to say Enid Blyton. Maybe a little bit of a cliche, but as a child, as so many writers would say, absolutely absorbed Enid Blyton books, particularly the Mallory Towers series, Faraway Tree, Thames 5, loved them. And what I'd really like to find out from her is, really just explore where the ideas come from, how her stories evolved. Was she a pantser? Somebody just let the story unfold, or did she plan things? And just really, have a chat to her. But one of the things I'd also like to have a conversation about is whether she has any idea how beloved she is. So many decades after she died, that her books are still adored, still enduring. And I actually pretty much like to have the same conversation with Beatrix Potter as well, because as a woman who absolutely struggled at first to get accepted as a writer in a man's world, did she have any idea, or can she even comprehend how loved her books still are all around the world? So yeah, they would be my conversations. Welcome along, another joiner, Helen Pfeiffer, again, fabulous author. If anybody likes crime, horror, a little bit of supernatural, Helen does both, and she does them absolutely brilliantly, and she's one of my Right Romantics pals. So I have a couple of Helen's books on my Kindle, but read nearly all of her amazing back catalogue, so thank you for joining us. So another question that I've been asked: do you always know the full story of your books when you start them, or do they evolve as you write? I'm what's known as a pantser. So a pantser is somebody who doesn't plot out their book. I know people who are plotters, and they have copious plans as to how it's going to pull together, and I tried to do that once, and then when I started writing it, my characters just unravelled the whole thing, and I've never done that since. So what I do is I develop my characters, and I develop my characters, I hope, really well in a lot of detail, and I think that probably comes from my background as a recruiter and as a trainer and as a coach. I very much am about analysing people and really thinking about why people behave in the ways that they do. So I really, really work on my characters and get them sorted. I have a basic premise. I know what my plot is kind of going to be about, what the rough story is. Sometimes have an ending. In fact, usually have some sort of ending. Always have some sort of beginning, although I may change that. As to how I get from that beginning to the end, anything could happen. And sometimes I have quite a few surprises when my characters decide to do things that didn't really expect them to do. So, for example, in an early version of what is now New Beginnings at Seaside Blooms, I had a particular character in there who... if anybody has read that, the main character, Sarah, is searching for somebody called Stephen on the back of a prediction that a clairvoyant has given her. And Stephen seemed to be cropping up everywhere. And so I had quite a few kind of Stephens that weren't the one appearing in the story. And one particular Stephen suddenly turned into a stalker and held her up at knife point in her shop. And it was just the bizarrest thing, because he wasn't meant to do that. I have no idea where it came from. It absolutely didn't fit with the story, and I ended up having to ditch him and take that out completely. But yeah, wasn't planning on that. My brand new book, Finding Love at Hedgehog Hollow, the character of the mum, who, if anybody has read it, knows that mum isn't a particularly pleasant person. I had no idea she was going to be quite so unpleasant to my main character, Sammy, until I started writing her. And in The Secret to Happiness, which came out in September, I have a character who was meant to be a baddie, but actually she didn't like being a baddie, and she ended up having quite a change around in the kind of personality she had and the part that she played in the story. So yes, I have an idea, but I just let it evolve as it goes. And that very much links to the next question, which is, do you know the life path of the characters from your previous books? And if so, do you intend to revisit their lives in more detail in the future? So because I'm a pantser anyway, and just the characters evolve as they go, I don't necessarily have their entire life story worked out, but I probably do have some ideas as to what is going to happen to them. So for example, in Finding Hope at Lighthouse Cove, if anybody has read that story, the main character Elise, and I won't give the name of her love interest, but the person that she does end up with in that story, they've both been married before, and they've been very much hurt. And so in my mind, I actually don't see them being characters who do get married. I see them staying together forever, but that they won't go down the marriage route, or if they do, they wouldn't make a fuss of it. It would be very much they go off and then they come back from somewhere and they're married, and it's no fuss about it whatsoever. My main character Callie in Making Wishes at Bayview, she appears in Starry Skies at the Chocolate Pot Cafe, which is coming out in September, and she has a couple of children when she appears in that book. Quite a few years have elapsed between the two books, and again, I always knew that was going to happen, but it was a lovely moment to be able to plant her in the book and to show anybody who has followed the whole series of books and knows the characters from previous books that, oh gosh, look, Callie's now had a couple of children, and how old they are and what their names are. So there's kind of a little bit of a path to them. So I do have certain characters who recur in my books, and the way I very much write them, every book that I write is a standalone book, but it's linked. I mean, there is a series, there is the Welcome to Whitstable Bay series, but each part of it tells a different main character story. But certain characters do appear quite often in other books, and they appear in such a way that if you haven't read any of the other books, it would make no difference to the fact that they appeared. They would just seem, that character has appeared, that's absolutely fine. But if you have read the other books, then it'd be like, oh my goodness, there's Sarah. Oh, how lovely to see her again. And that's how I tend to kind of build the world, that you don't have to have read it all, but it's a little bit of a bonus if you have seen it before. And then, still on the subject of characters, I'll do one more question, and then I will do a little bit of an excerpt from the book. So I've been asked, do your characters talk to you, and have you ever replied aloud when you're not actually alone? Now, when I read that question earlier, because these were sent to me from Boldwood earlier today, that actually made me laugh out loud, that question, because if I said yes, that might make me sound a little bit odd, but yeah, they do talk to me. Quite often you hear a writer say that characters do talk to them, and it's not that they're kind of, there's voices in my head talking to me, telling me to do things, but they come alive when you type them into the keyboard. I do type straight into the keyboard, can't be doing of using a pen and then typing it up later. So they come alive, and they sort of do talk to me in the same way that I said that one became a stalker and one didn't want to become a baddie. I don't tend to actually have a physical conversation with them, as in speak out loud. My husband works from home, and obviously in lockdown, daughter's here too. They might give me some slightly strange looks, but I have been known to kind of go, "What?" in a kind of incredulous voice when my words take me somewhere that I kind of wasn't expecting them to go to. What's more likely to happen than speaking to them, though, is my characters make me cry a lot. I do write uplifting books, but I do write very emotional books, and quite often they do make readers cry, and I'm really sorry. Not sorry, because I think if you do cry at a book, it's kind of really connecting with your emotions and saying that you're invested in that character, and hopefully that means the character has been written well. So I do often sit at my desk and I'll get an alarmed look from my daughter or my husband going, "Are you okay?" While I'm bawling my eyes out, sniffing away, mopping my tears, and it's just that character said something beautiful, or a character has passed away, or something's happened that has just upset me. So yes, characters, they do make me cry a lot. Thank you so much. Nick's saying she loves that about my books. That's really kind of you. Thank you, Nick. Welcome along to Emma Murray and Mary Grand. Thank you very much for your nice messages. Both authors with Boldwood. I have read, just finished at the weekend, Emma's amazing book Time Out. Emma, I need to write you a review, but this week's gone crazy. I've started writing it and not quite finished it, so a review coming to you, 5-star, brilliant. And Mary, looking forward to reading yours as well. I think is it out next week, or has it just come out? I've lost track slightly. It's either on pre-order or it's on my Kindle, and will be imminent. Leonie, thank you very much for joining us again. Leonie, another Boldwood author, so lovely to see you all here. So let me read a little bit of an excerpt from Finding Love at Hedgehog Hollow. I haven't had my paperbacks sent to me just yet. They are winging their way to me and hopefully will be here in the next day or so. So I can't kind of physically hold up a book and read from it. So I am just going to be reading from one that I prepared on my computer, the excerpt. So first of all, Finding Love at Hedgehog Hollow, if you don't have it, but I have whet your appetite and you'd like to have it, is available on paperback, ebook for Kindle, Apple Books and Kobo, large print, audio via the uLibrary app if your a library has downloaded and subscribed to that. So lots of formats of getting hold of it. And the blurb says, can love really be found when you stop looking for it? As Samantha Wishaw watches the love of her life marry another woman, she is ready to give up hope of finding her happy ever after. But when a chance encounter leads Sam to find friendship in Thomas, a lonely, grumpy, elderly widower living at derelict Hedgehog Hollow, her life is about to change forever. Glad to have a distraction from family feuds and matchmaking, Sam vows to fulfil Thomas and his wife Gwendolyn's dreams of restoring Hedgehog Hollow to its former glory and to open a hedgehog rescue centre. Throwing herself into the task at hand, little does Sam realise that the keys to love and happiness may also be found at Hedgehog Hollow when she least expects it. So I'm going to start straight away with chapter 1. I did have a little look further into the book and thought, oh, shall I go further? But no, I'll start from the beginning because it very much does position what's happening. So if anybody is listening has already read this today, I'm sorry you're going to think, gosh, that sounds a little bit familiar, but I hope you enjoy having me reading it and probably stumbling over quite a few words. I've already discovered there is one word that I can write, but I absolutely cannot say, and you'll spot that because it comes up really quickly. So it says, so it starts off with Sammy and Dad, and very much that's the first chapter, and theirs is a very important relationship in the book. So, would I be right in thinking that wasn't easy for you? Dad whispered to me shortly after we exited the church behind the newlyweds. My stomach did somersaults. Had he guessed the truth? It was really easy, I said quietly, hoping to deflect him. All I needed to do was smile, hold the bouquet, arrange a train, and smile some more. My cheeks are aching. And I bet your heart is too. Mine would be if my cousin had just married the love of my life. Dad! Shh! Even though he'd spoken softly, I still felt the need to grab his arm and lead him down the church path, away from prying ears, like great Aunt Agnes's. Mum's auntie already hated me for some unfathomable, that's the word I can't say, unfathomable reason, so it was best not to provide her with more ammunition. James is not the love of my life, I insisted, very much aware of the shake in my voice. It was... Looking up into Dad's warm brown eyes, I crumbled. There was no point denying it. No, it wasn't easy. If I was to compile a list of the worst days ever, losing Gramps would be top, but today wouldn't be far behind. My voice cracked on the final words. Dad pulled me into a hug, instantly comforting me with his warmth and strength. At 6'4", there was a lot to hold on to, and I didn't think I'd ever grow too old for a hug from him, especially on a day like today. Thanks, Dad, I said as we separated. I needed that. Can everyone except the bride and groom move away from the church entrance, please? Called the wedding photographer. I lifted up the skirts of my bridesmaid dress as Dad and I moved further down the church path. With a heavy heart, I turned and watched Chloe and James gaze adoringly at each other under an archway of pink and cream roses, while the photographer snapped photos and tried to shoo away the paparazzi of friends and relatives thrusting mobile phones into his shot. The mid-August sun warmed my bare arms, and I closed my eyes for a moment, head tilted upwards, as the gentlest of breezes kissed my face, comforting and relaxing me. Dad and I stood in silence for a few minutes, watching the photographer issue instructions to Chloe and James to stand side by side, hold hands, face each other, kiss. I couldn't help fantasising that I was the one in the ivory dress instead of my cousin, starting my happy ever after with the man with whom I'd been hopelessly in love for nearly 2 years. Unable to bear watching them any longer, I drew my eyes away, but they rested on the equally unsettling sight of Mum smiling proudly and hugging Auntie Louise, mother of the bride. A familiar wave of sadness swept over me. I completely understood that their sisterly closeness was multiplied several-fold by being identical twins. But what I'd never understood was why that warmth and affection couldn't be shared with Dad and me. I actually couldn't remember the last time she'd hugged me. Some people aren't tactile, but she didn't fall into that camp, frequently hugging Auntie Louise and Chloe. I'd always had a difficult relationship with her, and had often wondered if part of it was her envy of how close I was to Dad. Yet she was so close to her twin that surely it couldn't be a surprise that Dad and I, left on the periphery, had forged such a strong bond. Stop it, Sam. Not today. Today is challenging enough without going down that road. Mum looks nice, I said. In keeping with the colour scheme, she wore a pale pink floaty dress, a matching pink waterfall jacket and a fascinator. Your mum looks beautiful, Dad said, a wistful tone to his voice. It's good to see her in something that isn't black for once. I couldn't remember seeing Mum wear anything but dark, drab colours. Auntie Louise, by contrast, usually wore bright colours, although she'd opted for a muted palette today. The mother of the bride outfit was really classy. A fitted dusky pink shift dress with an ivory laced bodice, pink jacket and matching wide-brimmed hat. And you look very smart, I added. Dad was a vet, so I was used to seeing him in a shirt and trousers, but he'd invested in a charcoal three-piece suit and new shoes for the wedding, and he looked very distinguished. Looking towards the bride and groom once more, I sighed. What a strikingly beautiful couple they were. With his muscular physique, dark blonde hair, immaculately coiffed beard and piercing blue eyes, James could have been a model, and so could Chloe. The off-the-shoulder bodice and the bottom of her ivory dress were covered in intricate pink and cream embroidery. Her waist-length blonde hair was piled in loose curls on the back of her head, pinned back with sparkly flowers, while two delicate plaits crisscrossed over the top of her head like a waistband. Sorry, like a headband even. Absolutely stunning. Although Chloe could have worn a bin bag and still looked incredible. Her dad, my Uncle Simon, had Danish roots, and those genes had blessed Chloe with straight pale blonde hair, ice blue eyes, and chiselled cheekbones. Chloe attracted male attention wherever she went, and once we hit our teens, was never without a boyfriend. As we got older, she became a magnet for men who used her like a beautiful trophy on their arm. None of them appreciated her. She was cheated on several times, put down, or made to feel stupid. I remembered one particular ex ridiculing her for a job as a preschool assistant, calling it playing with children all day because you're too thick to teach them. She was no pushover, so wouldn't take it for long before ending it and moving on. Yet she never seemed to learn, picking the same alpha male bad boy type each time. She also struggled with female friendships, being on the receiving end of jealous accusations of flirting with their boyfriends or trying to outshine them all the time. So she clung to me, the one person who'd always been there for her. It saddened me that as a result of so many negative experiences, Chloe was insecure about her looks, when she had absolutely no need to be, whereas I, the one who blended into the crowd, was really comfortable in my own skin most of the time. I was 5'8" and slim, same as Chloe, but the complete opposite in colouring. My hair was thick and brown like Mum's and Auntie Louise's. For years, Chloe had tried to persuade me to get it thinned out or highlighted to attract the men, but I resisted. If I needed an expensive haircut for a man to notice me, then they weren't worthy of my time, and no amount of toning or shading was going to make me the sort of woman who'd get a second glance when Chloe was around anyway, although that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. My favourite feature was my eyes, which were hazel with amber and green flecks and a dark ring. When I wasn't with Chloe, and therefore not invisible, they were the first thing anyone noticed. Chloe looks stunning, doesn't she? I said. She certainly does, Dad agreed. And so do you. Lovely to see you in a dress for once. I curled my lip. Even a pink one? I love the style. Full-length A-line tulle skirt with a ruched off-the-shoulder bodice, satin waist ribbon and corset-style detailing at the back. But the colour? Tad laughed. It suits you. Although being the only bridesmaid, I'd have thought Chloe could have given you some say in the colour. She gave a few other options, very unenthusiastically. And you know how it is. What Chloe wants, Chloe gets, we chorused together, smiling at each other. Which was one thing when you were kids and it was one of your Barbies or dresses, Dad continued. But you do know you can say no, don't you? I know, but it was obvious how much she wanted pink, and it's her big day, not mine. My voice caught as I said the words. No, definitely not mine. If only. I cleared my throat as I continued. Her excitement far outweighed my objection, so I was happy to go with the flow. Dad looked down at me earnestly. I love that you've always been so thoughtful and kind, Sammy, but I worry about it too. You're not kids anymore. You don't have to keep giving her what's yours. I know, but James was never mine to hold on to. A lump constricted my throat and I had to blink back the tears. He shook his head, frowning. I know I only saw you together a few times, but I thought you two were happy. Next thing I know, he's with Chloe and you're a bridesmaid at their wedding. Sucks, doesn't it? If it had been up to me, I'd have married James, had his children, we'd have grown old together. But he wasn't feeling the love. Then one day he finally was, except it wasn't for me. Oh, Sammy, he said gently, his eyes full of sympathy and his shoulders slumped. I'm so sorry. Please don't be nice to me. You'll set me off again. I took a deep breath. I know it's not ideal that he chose someone in my family, but if it hadn't been Chloe, I'd have lost him to someone else. It was never going to last much longer, no matter how much I wanted it to. But it was Chloe, and he fell for her, so it is what it is. And look how happy she is. She deserved to find a good guy after all the bad ones. How could I begrudge her happiness with someone who I knew to be a genuinely lovely person, whose only flaw from what I'd seen was that he hadn't fallen helplessly in love with me like I had with him? Can I have the bridesmaid and best man, the photographer called, and can the immediate family be standing by, please? That's our cue. Dad squeezed my hand as we stepped forwards. You know I'm here for you if you ever want to talk about it. Thanks, Dad. I know, and I love you for it. As we posed for what seemed like hundreds of photos, I pushed my heartache aside and focused on Chloe's happiness. She wasn't just my cousin, she was my lifelong best friend. With only a 6-month age difference, we'd been at the same class at school and had attended many of the same after-school clubs. We lived a couple of streets apart and our families holidayed together, so every aspect of our lives had always been inextricably linked. And now we were linked by James. And I just had to learn to live with that or risk losing Chloe. So that's chapter 2. Hope you enjoyed that. Didn't stumble over too many words, I don't think. So just a couple more welcomes. A few more people have joined. So you're very welcome, Emma. Absolute pleasure to recommend your book, Time Out by Emma Murray. Absolutely gorgeous. Tricia, thank you. I'm really glad you've enjoyed a bit of insight into writing. If you're able to stick around a bit longer, I have a few more questions, so you'll get even more of that. Thank you, Leonie. Leonie says she loves the hedgehog rescue idea. So lovely. Looking forward to starting this. Oh, thank you very much. I do love hedgehogs. Hi, Elaine. Thank you very much for joining us. Very kind of you. Thank you, Joanne, for popping in. Much appreciated. Like Anne, Joanne is another book blogger and very kindly shared a gorgeous review on day one of the tour today. Really appreciated that. Thank you, Sharon, for your lovely comments as well. Thank you, Linda. Oh, bless you, starting it. Oh, thank you, Nia. Glad I read that. Okay. I'm very conscious I go very northern, more northern than normal when I do read out men voices. I don't know why. So, okay, let's go to a couple more questions. Now, as I said, again, feel very, very free to ask me questions if you can think of anything. So where are we? How do you do the research for your books on any topics you're not familiar with? Do you find an expert or do you just search the internet? Oh, love that. Google is my friend. Google is a friend of every writer. Although I dread to know what my search engine would look like, sometimes my search history, although I'm not a thriller or crime writer because theirs must be even more hideous. But I did once search how long could a dead body lie there before it would start smelling. And I was very conscious of, if somebody did look on my history, what would that look like? So yeah, Google is amazing, and for things like medical conditions, there is so much help online on something like NHS's website, loads and loads of charity websites, and quite often charities about particular diseases like British Heart Foundation, Michael J. Fox Trust, Cancer Care, etc., etc. They have brilliant blogs and videos of people who are living with or have experienced with the different illnesses that I might cover if I have an illness in my book. So, for example, I followed loads of websites, blogs, videos for researching Parkinson's, which is a theme within one of my books, Bear With Me. If I know somebody who is an expert, that's perfect. So again, with Parkinson's, my mum and dad's next door neighbour actually has Parkinson's, and so I was able to spend some time with her, and it was really great to understand live from somebody what it was like to live with that, but also to see how the symptoms affected her. I have a cousin who's a district nurse, I have another who is a nurse, and I have another who teaches nurses, having been a nurse herself. And so they are my go-tos for any medical advice, from anything from how long might somebody be kept in hospital, would they stay overnight if this or the other happened, and particularly for Finding Love at Hedgehog Hollow, where the main character Sammy is a district nurse. They've provided me with so much great help with that, and then I had a bit of a nightmare and I had to change her career partway through it. She was going to continue being a district nurse, but because of something that happens in the story, I couldn't do that. She then becomes a teacher, and so again, it was great having a cousin who teaches nurses, so I could find out about that. My auntie Gwen, runs a one-woman rescue centre for hedgehogs. So as far as inspiration for what it might be like to run a hedgehog centre for Finding Love at Hedgehog Hollow, I spent quite a bit of time with her. I think she introduced me to the first ever live hedgehog that I saw, because sadly before that, like so many of us, the only hedgehogs I'd ever seen were ones that were roadkill, absolutely devastating, and so it was so lovely to see them rescued and released into the wild. So loads and loads of information from her. Documentaries for hedgehogs, again, the British Hedgehog Preservation Society, People's Trust for Endangered Species have been really invaluable on finding information. I became a member of the British Hedgehog Preservation Society, which meant that I got loads of flyers and information. I've got a really, really brilliant book all about hedgehogs as well that's helped me. So I do tend to do research. I have a friend whose husband is in the police, and Helen Pfeiffer, who's with us today, she's also in the police, and I've asked both of them lots of different questions about that, because we want to get, and even if it's just a small part of the story, we do want to get these things accurate, because there'll always be somebody who comes on a review and goes, that wouldn't happen, and so disappointing. And then they give you a 1-star review for something, that tiny bit of research that wasn't quite accurate. So I try to do the best that I can with that. I'm just going to look at some of the comments before going to another question. Hi Katie, welcome along. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your gorgeous review earlier. I think it must be really weird when we engage with people online all the time, and then suddenly you get to see the person but also hear their voice. I don't know if anybody had imagined that I sound the way that I do, but thank you so much for that lovely comment about my reading, Anne. Do my own audiobook. It would take me so long to record them, I'd stumble over every word, but I have good practice being able to do this. When I was a kid, I used to go to church, and I used to do Bible reading in the local church, Eisteddfods, and I was champion Bible reader each year, as you do, and I think that helped me then go into a career later as a trainer, and then being a trainer I am used to presenting information, although I was nervous about this because I've never done one of these before. Thank you, Nicola, Nick, that's lovely. A question from Elaine, welcome along. Did you find the whole author process intimidating, or were you able to take it in your stride? I'm totally overwhelmed by everything. Oh, bless you. I think it helped that I started by joining the Romantic Novelist Association, the RNA's New Writers Scheme, back in, where are we? I've completely lost, where are we? 2012. And that really helped, but that was seriously intimidating. I don't mean anything against the RNA, but you're joining an organisation where there are so many amazing big names as part of the organisation, hugely successful authors, and you're there thinking, I haven't even finished writing my debut yet, and I have no idea if it's good enough. So I did feel quite intimidated at first, not because of anybody at the RNA, I emphasise that, but just because, well, it's scary when you think, oh, I've done nothing. How could I do that? How could I be part of that? So that was a starting point, but then I met and engaged online with the other Right Romantics and absolute superstars, and that was a group of unpublished authors. And it's one of those things, find a group of people, find a tribe that can really help you. And we've gone through highs and lows together of everybody getting publishing deals or bringing out books as an indie release, or a combination of both, losing publishing deals, having rejections, having successes, and it then becomes more realistic when you're part of a group and you can see what other people are going through. I still am such a fangirl when it comes to famous authors. You should have seen the disastrous wreck I was at the RNA's conference a couple of years ago, and when Jill Mansell was stood nearby me. Oh my goodness, I was desperate to have a photo taken with her and speak to her, and I was an absolute wreck. I had to get the chair of the RNA to interrupt her and ask if I could have a photo, and it's still a very, very important moment to me, my photo with Jill Mansell. And then my husband started stalking her on Twitter, and I don't mean literally stalking her, but saying, oh, you've met my wife, she's a huge fan of yours, you should read her books, she's really talented. And poor Jill, and she didn't know what to do with herself. So yeah, I still find it at times overwhelming. I do massively suffer from imposter syndrome, and I think so many other authors do. For the first time this year, I felt like a real author, that some people actually got in touch with me, some of whom are on the conversation just now, got in touch with me saying, I've loved your books, I've read your books, they're amazing. And I'd never had that before in 5 years of being published, and it was just it was really quite a shock and humbling moment. And then the most amazing thing ever has been during lockdown, getting messages from people saying, I have found your books and I have read the entire back catalogue, and it has got me through lockdown. And makes me cry. It's just so humbling to think that people who are having a really, really tough time finding escapism in something that I wrote, in some cases many years ago, would never have even dreamed of the scenario that we're in now when I wrote those words. It's so lovely to have that. Sorry, Elaine, that was a really, really long answer to your question, but I hope it was okay. Joanne's asking, do any of the emotional parts of my books make me cry? Oh my goodness, yes, absolutely. I cried buckets, so you've read Finding Love at Hedgehog Hollow. I won't give any spoilers for anybody else, but a couple of the sad moments in there, oh, a hideous mess of tears and snot, I would have to say, is what I was with that. Absolutely disgusting. So yeah, absolutely sobbed my eyes out. But also the nice bits, when something really happy happens, that gets me in floods of tears as well. I cry at everything. I cry at greetings cards, adverts, the news. The happy story at the end of the news has me sobbing. Yeah, I'm a real sobber, but yeah, my book's disaster for sobbing. Oh, thank you for the lovely questions. Elaine, if you want to ask me any more, if you've got any more questions offline, very, very happy to answer and help and share any experience, because we're all in this together. So what question have we got next? What made you choose to focus on hedgehogs? So cute. Yes, they are cute. If anybody goes onto Boldwood Books website today, on the blog there, I've done a post about the inspiration for why I wanted to talk about hedgehogs. My auntie Gwen, my dad's sister, she is a hedgehog rescuer. She's somebody who has done this for about 40 years. Her name's down in the County Durham area. Oh God, that was northern when I said that. County Durham. In the County Durham area, for if anybody finds a hedgehog injured or sick or abandoned, they can get in touch with the British Hedgehog Preservation Society, who then put in touch with my auntie Gwen, and she runs Hedgehog Rescue Centre out of her garage. And I just was so inspired. I had an idea about the relationship of Sam and her cousin Chloe, and then I wanted it to have a new beginning, and I had a thought of a farm, and then suddenly, oh, a rescue centre for hedgehogs, perfect. So then I pulled them together. And I love hedgehogs. So lucky we have one that visits our garden every year. I have no idea if it's the same one. I've never asked him, but we do have one that comes each year, and they're endangered. They're really endangered, and a lot of that's, as many endangered animals are, it's change of habitat. And I just thought if I can just, without preaching, I can just get a few messages across. So even if somebody who didn't know that hedgehogs were lactose intolerant now knows that they're lactose intolerant and therefore doesn't put milk out for them, which can kill them, then, you know, if I could have saved a couple of hedgehogs by doing that, that would be amazing. So that was another reason for picking them. Will there be more books after this one? Will it be a series? Yes, they will. It's going to be a trilogy. Book 2 will be out in January, and I'm writing that at the moment. I'm about 55,000 words into that, and I know exactly where that is going, surprisingly. Book 3 out in May. I have provisional titles, but I don't know that I'm allowed to share them just yet, so I'd best not, unless Mia is still on and says that I can, so I won't say that. And linked to that, would love to know what adventures will happen next at the Hedgehog Rescue Sanctuary. So one thing that I've noticed on a couple of the reviews that I've had, the early reviews that have already come in today, is people saying, would love to see more hedgehogs, because very much the book does get to the point where the Hedgehog Rescue Centre is setting up, well, if you want to see more hedgehogs, you are in for a treat, because there is a smorgasbord of hedgehogs available for you in the second and the third book, because the second book will pick up immediately where the first one leaves off, and it is all about, therefore, Sammy running the rescue centre. She's still got her day job, and so part of the story, without giving any spoilers away, is a battle between day job and actually running the rescue centre. Can she do that? And that becomes a bit of a crisis point when the first hoglets, baby hedgehogs, when they arrive, and they need round-the-clock care, and suddenly the idea of being able to give round-the-clock care to these tiny little few-day-old babies and do a full-time demanding teaching job, kind of a bit difficult. If you have read Hedgehog Hollow, the first one, you will know that the Grimes boys aren't very pleasant. Well, they haven't gone away. There is still more incidents with them, and I won't say any names, but Samantha's love interest, there's quite a bit, it's told from his perspective as well as hers, book 2, and there's quite a bit about relationships with his family come into that, because one thing that just fascinates me is there's always a romance in my book, but it's not usually the absolute main focus of the book, and I'm much more interested in that sounds awful, much more interested in friendships and family relationships, but I find those more fulfilling to describe, and a romance thread to run through it. So there was a lot about Sam's relationships in book 1, but book 2 will have those continuing, but very much about her love interest, nearly gave the name then, coming into that. Now, let me just look. There was a couple of questions came through. Which of your books would you most like to see made into a movie, from my friend Susan, and who would play the lead roles? Oh, all of them! Richard Curtis, please come find me. Netflix, please. It's lovely. Some of my very early reviews when my books first came out, quite a lot of people said I could really, really imagine these being made into a film or a TV series, and absolutely I can. And I'd love to, and that would be a dream come true. Campaign Richard Curtis for me, please. Campaign Netflix for me, please. I think the logical one would really be to start with the Whipsborough Bay series. Ideally, the entire 4, but book 1 is sort of a prequel, and the 3 others are very much connected. I think they would translate really well. I think Hedgehog Hollow would be absolutely beautiful as a series. I think it would work. The settings and everything, absolutely gorgeous. Any of my Christmas ones, of course, perfect. Better than a Hallmark Christmas movie. And Bear With Me as well. Again, gorgeous. And I would need to be an extra in it, obviously. As far as who would play characters, I'm not really great on actors and actress names. I don't quite watch enough TV, but I tend to know who my hero would be. So my hero in Hedgehog Hollow is Chris Pratt. I'm a hero in Bear With Me. I have a bit of a thing about the four Chris's. Is Chris Hemsworth Thor? So yeah, I'm sure they would love to be in a book set in a fictional version of Scarborough. See them going and playing bingo and going on the observation wheel. That would be nice. I would, of course, be a main character in those rather than an extra. I think if there's any more questions there, live a dual point of view. Thank you. January, better get my pre-order in. Yes, I'm delivering on it, and I absolutely will be meeting my deadline. And the book will come out. My delivery date is the end of July, so we're very close, and then I guess probably be up for pre-order a little bit later. Nia, my editor, saying Secret Happiness would be amazing. Yeah, it would. I mean, any of that absolutely Secret Happiness. I think it's got some liken it to a bit of a mystery, and there's all sorts of great mystery. There's great drama unfolding in it, and again the visuals, absolutely fabulous as a film. They all need to be films. Absolutely, all of them. So another question: are the characters in Hedgehog Hollow based on real people? If not, are they people you would ever want to meet in real life? And the reason I've asked that is that I just spotted a question there. Sharon's asked, do I have a favourite character or one that I can most relate to? So that kind of very linked to this. So the only character, and Sharon knows this because she said apart from Sarah in Seaside Blooms, the only character in any of my books who's actually based on a real person is Sarah in New Beginnings at Seaside Blooms. Sarah is based on me. Predominantly based on me. The idea behind that book is something that happened in real life. What really makes me laugh, cry, laugh again. I've had a couple of I've had loads of amazing reviews for that book, but I've had a couple of 2-star ones recently where they've and a 1-star one where the reviewers have really hated the book. Ouch. But they've really hated Sarah, and they think she's really childish, and they think she's stupid and she makes silly decisions. That's me, and I made all those decisions in real life. Sort of because the inspiration's there. So I sort of chuckle to myself, and when they say it's silly and it would never happen, they say truth is stranger than fiction. Genuinely, a lot of the things in that book did happen. Everybody else in any of my books, whether a main or a minor character, excuse me, completely fictional. From Finding Love at Hedgehog Hollow, get the right book. I would absolutely love to meet Sammy and Thomas. I mean, Sammy, she is just kindness personified. Treated really badly by some people in her life. Some beautiful friendships and family relationships with others, and she's just such a lovely, lovely person, and that's all credit to those who have cared for her and been there for her. And Thomas, the grumpy old widower, oh gosh, he's gorgeous. I would absolutely love to meet him. And my other most favourite character, I've got another 2 across my books, Ruby, who is in Making Wishes at Seaside Bloom, Making Wishes at Bayview. I'm mixing up my titles. She's in her 80s, and she's had a checkered past, and she's an absolute hilarious character. I love her. And Claire from Coming Home to Seashell Cottage. She's a real spiky character at the beginning of the series, and you find out why. And I found her fascinating, so I'd love to meet them. As for a character I would hate to meet, I wouldn't like to meet Sam's mum. She's really nasty. So yes, don't want to meet her. Don't want to go out for a drink with her. Leonie says, yay for the 4 Chris's. Yeah, aren't they amazing, bless them. So what else have I been asked? Just a few more questions that have come up. Have you ever had writer's block, and how did you deal with it? Oh gosh, writer's block. No. I see writer's block as being kind of 2 aspects to it. There's the one where you have no ideas. Oh my goodness, no ideas. No idea what I'd write about. And I have been very, very lucky, because when I came up with my first idea, New Beginnings at Seaside Blooms, I'd never thought about writing at all until that kind of point in my life, and it was as if a dam of creativity had just burst out, and I just had idea after idea, and now I've got about 5 works in progress. I have loads of ideas of stuff that I could write about, and I don't, touch wood, I don't see that drying up anytime soon, because what I tend to find as well is when I'm writing one book, a character or a place or an event will just open up and I think, wow, that would work. So I've got a couple of Christmas books that are coming out imminently, re-releases of and re-edited versions of my back catalogue, and when writing one of them, another character just completely appeared, and so it's just really lovely how that kind of works alongside one book leads to another. In terms of sitting down and the words not flowing, I think any writer who say, oh, sit down and I produce the same amount of words every day and it just always flows, wow, they're either amazing or they're a robot, or they're telling a little porcupine. And we have days where we're amazingly productive and days where we're not, and sometimes I'll sit there and I might write 500 words. Sometimes I might sit there and write 5,000, and it really depends. I think I'm quite good at just cracking on with it and thinking I've got to do this. Thank you so much, Joanne, much appreciated. I think I'm really good at cracking on with it because I always had to. Writing was something that I had to squeeze into, spare hour here and there. So there wasn't time for having a panicked moment. Is this working? Is it not working? Just get it down on the page and then I can edit it later. So real sympathy for anybody who has had writer's block. But I think if I ever did, I'd just probably step away and do something different, leave it for about a week and then come back to it later. I have parked a book before. Originally, a book was going to be coming out in January. And I had a conversation with Nia, my editor, and just said, I feel that there's a theme in it that's just a little bit too close to The Secret to Happiness, which had come out in September. But B, it's just not flowing quite as well. And this other idea is really kind of pushing me and nudging me, and I think it might be a bit better. So that book is still parked, but there's absolutely a story there, and I will go back to that one. Have you ever wanted to run a hedgehog sanctuary in real life? Oh, to play with hedgehogs all day, that would be amazing, but no. Absolutely not. I'd love to help out, but I'd be too afraid of the responsibility for these little lives in my hands. I was a brown owl up till a couple of years ago for 7.5 years, and I had to go through my first aid training as part of that. And my biggest fear was if anything happened to a brownie. The responsibility. I could cope with being on a trip with loads of them, but if anything had happened, so that kind of medical side of it, just would terrify me. So I'd help, but I couldn't run it. I would never sleep either because I would just be constantly worried about them. And if I couldn't save any, and there will be casualties, I would just be a bundle of tears all the time. I couldn't cope with that. And then the final question that's come in, and I will just check before I finish if there's any others that have come in. What would you say are the main messages of the book? That's a lovely question. In the book, I use a phrase that says, the fragrance stays in the hand of the person who gives the rose, or worded something like that. And I'd never actually heard of that phrase before. I was searching for a phrase about kindness because the book, and it's a bit of a theme that does come through a lot of my books, is about kindness. And gosh, don't we all need a lot of that in the world today? And I wanted to find something that I'd maybe not come across. And Sammy's Gramps says it to her, and she's, what on earth does that mean? Thank you so much, Mary, no problem at all. And she's, what does it mean? And he said, well, it's about how acts of kindness ultimately come back and give dividends on the person who gives them. So i.e. you give a rose away, but you still get the fragrance of that. And I thought, that's such a lovely, powerful image and such a lovely theme. And it's something that Sammy concludes at the end of the book. So very much about kindness, about being kind to yourself as well, not just kind to others, and how sometimes there are people in your life who are not kind to you, but you maybe feel obligated to keep them in your life, either they're a friend or even a family member, and it's a bit toxic, it's doing you a lot of damage. And there is a couple of relationships that Sammy comes to a realisation about and chooses how to handle those. So it can mean letting go rather than letting somebody else destroy you. And also another message would be that some people sometimes do act rude and grumpy, but it's only because they're lonely, and take a little bit of time and show them some kindness again, get to know them. Perhaps they will open up and let you in, and that's very much the kind of approach that Sammy has with Thomas, the grumpy old widower at Derelict Hedgehog Hollow. So that's all my questions that came in. So thank you. If anybody's here today that did ask any of those online on Facebook or Twitter. Really do appreciate those. Great set of questions. Just scrolling up, I can't see any more that have come in, and that really does take us perfectly to 8 o'clock. So couldn't actually have planned that timing better. You'd think a huge amount of planning had gone into pulling our list together, but that was absolutely brilliant. So I think we'll probably call it an evening there. I demanded pancakes for my tea before this, and then we had a visitor and I didn't get to have my pancakes. I'm really hungry, so I'm looking forward to having pancakes. I know it's not Shrove Tuesday, but hey, I felt like a celebration for launch day. Also, just before we came on this, Boulder, my fabulous publisher, had a summer moment. Can't get us all together for office circumstances, so they sent us all a little bottle of champagne, which was gorgeous, and we had a summer moment, which I actually just leave a little earlier. I've only had a sip of that because I thought if I actually drink that, I will stumble over every single word in my manuscript, so I didn't do that, but I'm going to enjoy that. I might have that after the pancakes. I'm not sure champagne and pancakes is quite a mix, but anyway. Thank you so much for joining. Everybody who has read, reviewed, downloaded, going to review, listened, really appreciate it. Anne, you superstar, absolutely loved your review. Thank you so much. Katie, Joanna, I know has loved yours too, so really appreciate it. Everybody have an amazing evening. Thank you for all of your support. Hope you love your journey to Hedgehog Hollow if you haven't already done that. Tell all your friends, leave us a review, much appreciated, and thank you for joining us. All the best. Bye bye. Thank you for the lovely comments coming in. Thank you, Liz. Okay, going to end the live video now. Thank you, everybody.